12. Okay. Over here. Thing. There we go. Okay. Some bring Bikkurim and recite, bring but do not recite, and some do not bring. These do not bring. Though he who plants on his own, but sinks a shoot into that of an individual of a public, and likewise who sinks a shoot from that of the private or from the public of his own, he who plants into his own and sinks a shoot into his own, but a private or public road is in between, such a one does not bring, and Yehuda says such a one does bring. For what reason does he not bring? Because it is written, the first of the first fruits of your land, only if all their growth is from your land. Tenants, lessees, a sikron, and a robber do not bring for the same reason, since it is written, the first of the first fruits of your land. One does not bring the corn from other than the seven species, not from the dates of the hills, nor the fruits of the valleys, nor from the olives which are not of the choices. One does not bring the corn before Shavuos. The men of Mount Sibo brought their Bekora before the Shavuos festival, and they did not accept these from them, because what is written, and the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you have sown in the field. Hey.
All right. Elo Mavian Velo Korean. Okay, next category are those who do bring the first fruits but cannot recite the vidoi. Hager Mavi Ve'eno Kore. The right, somebody who is
Right.
not a born Jew. He cannot read. She'eno yachol lomar asher nishba Hashem la'avoseinu la'ases lanu. That because he cannot say the part of the passage that says that Hashem swore to our forefathers because his forefathers weren't Jewish. V'im haisa imom Israel maybe v'korei. Even if his mother is a born Jew, then it's fine because now he does
Right.
have Jewish ancestors. Ukshehu mispalel, and once we're talking about the ger, the Mishnah also tells us changes that the ger says in his tefillah. Ukshehu mispalel beinu levein atzmo. When he's davening by himself, his silent Shemona Esrei Omer Elokei Avos Yisrael. He doesn't say Elokei Avaseinu because his avos were idolaters. Okay, ukeshehu beveis hakneses. If he's the shaliach tzibur, he says Omer Elokei Avosechem, not Elokei Avaseinu. He separates himself because he's a ger. Im haisai imom Yisrael Omer Elokei Avaseinu. However, if even his mother is Jewish, and certainly if his father was Jewish, then he says Elokei Avaseinu. Okay. This whole Mishnah over here is not la halacha. The actual halacha is that we darshan from the fact that Avraham Avinu is Av Hamon Goyim, that he's there's one of the psukim about Avraham Avinu says V'haya shimcha Avraham ki Av Hamon Goyim nesaticha v'darshu לשעבר היית אב לארם, ועכשיו אתה אב לכל העולם. So Abraham Avinu, when he got his name Abraham, he became the father to all the world, and all of the Gerim become children of Abraham, which is why we call them Ben Abraham and Ben Sarah. Okay, because which means that spiritually speaking, Abraham is their father, and a Ger does not have any difference in how he davens and also he's even allowed to bring the Bikkurim and say that Hashem swore to our forefathers because his forefather is Abraham.
Okay.
Okay, so the whole Mishnah over here is not la halacha. Okay, now again, while we're talking about the ger and different halachas for the ger, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Isha bas gerim lo tinasei lakahuna ad shetahei ima miYisrael. So if two gerim get married and they have a daughter, says
Right.
Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, even that daughter is not allowed to marry a kohen. Right? Even though she was conceived as a Jew, she was born as a Jew, but her parents are gerim. Like a ger, obviously a kohen is not allowed to marry a gioris. Okay, but now she's a Bas Giorim, Bas Gerim. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that a Kohen is not allowed to marry her.
Mhm.
Echad Gerim ve'echad avadim meshucharim, and the same applies to freed slaves. Afilu ad asara doros, and if you keep having marriages between children of Gerim, down 10 generations, their daughters are still not allowed to marry Kohanim. Iman Israel, until you have at least one born Jew in the bloodline, at which point now the daughter of their daughter is allowed to marry a Kohen. Interesting, just to insert this, the subject is dealt with also in another Masechta. Where is it? In Kiddushin, yeah. In Kiddushin, where Rabbi Yossi disagrees with Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and he says that no, the daughter of Gerim is perfectly kosher and is allowed to marry a Kohen.
Mhm.
Machlok is Tanoim on this point. Okay, we bring Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov because I think he's probably also the author of the previous Mishnah. Um, but I'm not sure. No, I'm just speculating there. I don't actually know for sure. But but at any rate, the lehalacha we say if a kohen comes lechatchila and says, "Can I marry this girl?" Her parents are both gerim. We tell him the halacha according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov and say, "No, you're not allowed to marry her." However, if he went ahead and married her, did a kiddushin in front of witnesses, and now they're married, we paskin halacha like Rabbi Yossi and say, "No need to divorce her." And as a matter of fact, their children are Kohanim and fit to serve as Kohen Gadol. So it's not we don't pass him by mum, but lechatchila we say rather stay away from this because we have a Tana who says that this is not allowed. Okay, back into our Mishnah. Apatrophos. Now we're returning to the subject of Bikkurim after having a little brief diversion about Gerim. Apatrophos is a um,
They call it administrator here,
administrator, yeah.
or agent. Right.
It's agent. It's basically somebody, a guardian, perhaps like if a child inherits and doesn't, you don't have he doesn't have the maturity to deal with his inheritance, then they appoint an administrator to deal with it on behalf of the child. So that's the apatrophos. Hashaliach and a shaliach, you know what a shaliach is. Eved, a slave, Isha, Tumtum. Tumtum is one of indeterminate sex. Androgynous is somebody who's hermaphrodite. Maybe in velo korin.
Mhm.
They can bring the bikurim if they own property, or the shaliach is bringing on behalf. The shaliach and the eved are bringing on behalf of somebody else. They can bring it, but they cannot recite the vidoy. She'enan yecholim lomar asher nasata li Hashem, which Hashem gave to me. Bit of an argument about the Isha, I think, because a woman can actually inherit. It's just that under normal, if she has brothers, then she doesn't inherit. But if she only has sisters, then she will inherit, and the land will belong to her.
That
So
comes from
Slovchad,
yeah, yeah. So that.
not Slovchad, correct. Okay. Hakonesh shnei ilanos besoch shel chavero. Okay, so somebody buys two trees in his fellow's field, and of course those trees will have bikurim. Maybe the Einokore, he can bring the Bikkurim, but he cannot recite the Vidoy because he doesn't necessarily own the land. Rabbi Meir Omer, maybe Bikuri. Now, this is a consistent machlokes with Rabbi Meir and Chachamim. That Rabbi Meir holds that buying two trees also entitles you to the land in between. That's a purchase of land. One tree, he agrees, there's the land does not come with it, but once you bought two trees, says Rabbi Meir, then you've got the land. Three trees, everyone agrees you've got the land. Okay, maybe Vikor. Yavash Hamayan. Now, what happens if you had land with trees, but the spring that was irrigating the field now dries up? Or Niktzatza Ilan, or the tree was chopped down, it still had fruit on it. Maybe Ve'enokore, he can still bring the fruit, but he cannot recite the Vidoy. Why? Because it's viewed as if even if the mayan is dried up, it's viewed as if the tree has been uprooted from the land because it's not going to get any nourishment anymore. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, maybe V'kore, he says, I don't see any difference in these cases. It grew out of the land and it's still fine. Me'atzeres v'ad hachag, maybe V'kore. From Shavuos until Sukkot is your band of time lechatchila to bring Bikurim, and you can recite your vidui. Min hachag v'ad Chanukah maybe ve'eno koreh. You can carry on bringing after Sukkot until Chanukah, but it's no longer time to recite the vidui. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseiro maybe Bekorei says even up until Chanukah you can still say the vidui.
Good.
Okay.
Hey, and we move on to Orla.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, base above. Now, concerning what did they say whenever they cause deferment or flavors, or which renders meduma the rule is astringent. In the case of like kinds, stringently and leniently. If they are of different kinds, how so? If leaven of wheat fell into dough of wheat and it suffices to leaven it, then whether it is outweighed by 100 to 1, it is not outweighed by 100 to, or not outweighed 100 to 1, it is forbidden. If it is not outweighed by 100 to 1, then whether it suffices to cause fermentation or it does not suffice to cause fermentation, it's forbidden. Stringently and leniently if they are of different kinds. How so? If, for instance, crushed beans have been cooked with lentils and they tend to part of flavor, where they are outweighed by 100 to 1 or they are not outweighed by 100 to 1, is forbidden. If they do not impart a flavor, whether they are outweighed by 100 to 1 or they are not outweighed by 100 to 1, is permitted. And if leaven of cooling fell into dough and it suffices to leaven, then leaven of truma fell in, and leaven of kilei hakayim and it suffices to leaven, it is forbidden.
Okay.
Okay.
Masasheni.
Gimel. If one has money in Yerushalayim and needs it, and his fellow has produce, he can say to his fellow, "This money is in exchange for your produce." Thus, this one eats his produce in a state of cleanliness, and the other can use his money for any purpose. But he is not to say so to an Abba Aretz except that without demand. Produce in Yerushalayim and money in the country, he may say this money is in exchange for that produce. Money in Yerushalayim and produce in the country, he may say this money is in exchange for that produce, provided the produce is taken up and eaten in Yerushalayim. This mission teaches the difference between. No, I'm sorry. Money brought into Jerusalem may be taken out again, but produce brought in may not be taken out again. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says produce brought in may also be taken out again.
Lime.
Fine. Okay. Zion Dalad. If one causes his vine to overhang his neighbor's cereal crop, he renders it forbidden and is responsible for it. If Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Simon say a man does not render forbidden that which is not his. And Rabbi Yossi said it once happened that a man sowed his vineyard in the sabbatical year, and the matter came before Rabbi Akiva, who said one does not render forbidden something that is not his. If a violent intruder sowed a vineyard and it was discovered from him, he cuts it down even on the intermediate days of a festival. How much must he pay the laborers? Up to a third. More than this, he cuts as usual, even after the festival. From when on is he called a violent intruder? From the time it is forgotten.
Hey. Hora.
I have to say, some of my Mishnayos are falling apart.
Well, it's good because you've been using
That's
them.
good. Okay. This should be, hey, Olive. If someone brings an earthenware vessel home for katos, oh wait, I skipped one. I'm not that. So I'm right. If someone brings an earthenware vessel home for katos purposes, he must immerse and spend the night next to the kiln. Reb Yudah says he may even bring a utensil from someone's home and it is acceptable for all atrocities with regard to katos. And for truma, he may so open the kiln and take the utensil. Reb Shimon says he may take a utensil from the second row. Yossi says from the third row. If someone immerses a utensil for mekatos in water that is not suitable for consecration, he must dry it. And if he immerses it in water that is suitable for consecration, he does not need to dry it. If he immerses the utensil in order to add consecrated water in it, in either case, he must dry. Regarding a gourd shell that immersed in water that is not suitable for consecration, one may consecrate mekatos in it until it becomes tameh. If the gourd fell subsequently becomes tameh, we may not consecrate mekatos in it. Rabbi Yeshua says if one may consecrate mekatos in the shell initially, he should also be able to consecrate mekatos in it at the end. And if one cannot consecrate mekatos in it at the end, he should also not be able to consecrate mekatos in it initially. In either case, one may not add consecrated water in it. Okay. And we are on to Zavachim. Hey, base. The bulls that are burned and the he-goats that are burned have their slaughter in the north and the reception of their blood in the sacred vessel in the north, and their blood requires sprinkling toward the curtain and on the golden altar. The omission of even one of these applications prevents atonement. The remainder of the blood he would pour on the western base of the altar, and if he did not apply it, he does not prevent atonement. These and those are burned in the place of the ashes. The communal and personal Katas offerings, these are the communal Katas offerings that he goes to Rosh Chodesh and the festivals. These have their slaughter in the north and the reception of their blood in the north, and the blood requires 4 applications on the 4 horns of the altar. How so? He ascended the ramp, turned to the surrounding edge, arrived at the southwest corner, and then the northeast corner, and then the northwest corner, and the southwest corner. The remainder of the blood he would pour onto the southern base. They are eaten within the courtyard's curtains by male Kohanim, prepared to any manner for a day and a night until midnight. It's interesting that you say male Kohanim. Why that word male needed? Who else would be there?
Well,
There wouldn't be any
because
females.
it's certainly not. Well, I mean that's to tell us that it's not the female kohanim. The
Right.
Mishnah says is the lezachari lezichrei kohana, only the male kohanim, because there are other things that female kohanim are allowed to eat. Like
Okay.
a female kohen is allowed to eat from the chatas.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Okay, but these the shalmei tzibur may only be eaten by the male kohanim.
All right. The Ola offering is a most holy offering. The slaughter is in the north, and the reception of its blood is in the north. Its blood requires 2 applications. They are equivalent of 4. It requires skinning and dismemberment, and is consigned in the entirety to the fires. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And we have Subos. And these are divorced without a ketubah, one who transgresses the law of Moses or Jewish practice. Now, what is the law of Moses? If she feeds him food that is not tithe, has relatives with him when she is a mestrant, does not separate challah or vows, does not keep her vows. Now, what is a Jewish practice? If she goes outside with her hair uncovered, or if she spies in the streets, spins in the streets, or if she talks with every man. Abishul says also if she curses his parents in his presence. Reb Tarfon says also if she is a loudmouth woman. Now, what is a loudmouth woman? One who speaks in her house and her neighbors hear her voice. If one betroths a woman on the condition that she is not under any vows, and it is found that she is under vows, she is not betrothed. If he married her without making any stipulations, and it is found that she is under vows, she may be divorced without a ketubah. If he betrothed her on the condition that she has no bodily effects, and such effects were found upon her, she is not betrothed. If he married her without making any stipulations, and bodily defects were found upon her, she may be divorced without a ketubah, and all bodily effects that disqualify kohanim also disqualify women. If bodily defects were upon her while she was still in her father's house, her father must bring proof that these defects came about after she was betrothed and that his misfortune had caused it. If she entered the husband's authority, her husband must bring proof that she had these defects before she was betrothed, and that his acquisition was made in error. These are the words of her mayor. The comment, however, say when does this apply? In the case of hidden defects, but in the case of exposed defects, he cannot make a claim. But if there's a bathhouse in the city, even in the case of hidden defects, he cannot make a claim because he examines her through his female relatives.
Okay, and we're done.
Great. Have a great Shabbos. Enjoy the heat.
Good Shabbos.
You know about the heat, right? It's supposed to be
Oh, it's
101,
gonna be a big one.
101, 105, something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'll go to make sure I'm in the early mid. Okay. Have a great day. Thanks.